Like, damn, I wish that we had, like, gay exploding penises in 2009, but we didn't. Welcome to Wow if True, the podcast of your wildest memes.
We're your one-stop internet culture shop, here to dissect what's going viral, why we care, and how this might affect our real human lives. And I'm Anonymous Ninja 13, Isabel.
Was that your fanfic.net name?
That was my fanfic.net name. It is still up.
And I'm Amanda. Anyone could be famous on the internet, so why not us?
Why not Anonymous Ninja 13?
I love how that isn't too far away from your current fandom name, which I won't say on the podcast because I don't want to make Allison have to bleep it out.
I appreciate that, and I'm sure Allison does as well. Yeah, I've had a pretty consistent branding for my fandom life. So, last episode, we talked about how the internet sucks in 2022. Spoilers, the suckage is crypto, to no one's shock. But this episode, we're going to talk about how it sucked in Amanda just changed it. 2009. Just kidding. But also, we're not kidding, because on the day we're recording this, the news is extremely bad, and it will likely be very bad when we release this episode as well. We're predicting that through our tarot decks. We do not have tarot decks.
Oh, should I do a tarot draw right now?
Please do a tarot draw right now.
Alright, my tarot deck is like in another room, so I'm gonna just go on randomtarotcard.com. It's Judgment.
Oh no! Is that bad?
That really fits the theme of the episode very well, because we're going back to our roots talking about absolute nonsense, and Alexa Derman is a playwright who has brought us some very cursed content that she's judging herself for and we're judging her for. Alexa, what's up, and what is this new project you put on the internet?
Thanks for having me. Wow, if true. This cursed project is called Big Fanfic Piece, and it involves my friends and artists doing dramatic interpretations of my 2009 fanfiction.net author profile, which was helpfully preserved for me by Past Me in a 7th grade time capsule where you had to write like all about your life, and Past Me was at the height of her obsession with Twilight. I was 12. And I was like, this time capsule would not be complete without, a capsule portrait of my fanfiction author profile. So it's a 7-page document. I self-identify as a goth emo punk. I say I'm 12 and live in bloody NJ, which totally sucks. There's a lot. And so I sent it out to a bunch of my friends, and they made some videos of themselves performing this content. And then I put it on the internet so people could make fun of me and bully me like they did when I was 12.
So, okay, I have, one question here, and why? What are you trying to achieve here with that?
Yeah, okay, so much. I just think it's such a rich, I think it's a rich text, and I want other people to engage with it, and I think there's, it's just so, on the one hand, it's so performative, I'm clearly performing this idea of, what an author or, a fanfic persona should be, but it's so shameless and self-indulgent, but it's also I think there's something really delicious about it. It's this 7-page document about this body of work that is gone, right? It's completely gone. I appeared on someone's list of worst fan fiction of all time. I got really embarrassed. I deleted all my Twilight fan fiction from the internet. I deleted all of it from my computer. I really made it disappear. And so it's this printout is all that is left of this massive body of work, and just really dives deep into this is why I made all these character choices. And I think something about the kind of the transference from Twilight the books into my fan fiction, into me talking about my fan fiction, into me printing out me talking about my fan fiction, scanning that document how 13 years later, and then actors performing it. This is so cheesy, but with playwriting, there's always this kind of interpretive transformation that happens between the text and the actor, and I feel there's just so much interpretive transformation happening here that it's really, really delicious and cringy and fun. I hope it's fun. I think it's fun. I think it's funny.
Yeah. I mean, maybe should I read just like a short passage just to
Please.
get the feel of it?
And Amanda, your performance was so good, by the way. You gave an amazing performance.
Okay, no, honestly, so I did a performance for this project, and it was just like me kind of dramatically reading some stuff, but some like actual great performers participated in this reading, which is available on bigfanficpiece.tumblr.com. Like, somebody wrote a song, someone played a recorder, there was a dog involved, like, people did some good shit. I just kind of read it, and I'm gonna do that again real quick. Last episode, I did a dramatic rap of Rosalcon, the alleged Bitcoin launderer, and now I'm doing, Alexa Derman, age 13.
Great. And before you do, I just want to pitch that people, like someone just sent me a video yesterday that I don't know after seeing the project online. So if people feel inspired, they can still do
There's
that.
so much in this 7-page document, including this passage. Oh, here's the dealio on the Leah-Edward makeout session in Bella's Bloodlust and Edward's Kiss. Parentheses, healing Leah. Think, just think. There's always been the underlying tension between them. Okay, this is a parenthetical, but like, do Leah and Edward ever interact in the Twilight books, like, once?
No, they don't. They don't.
I think I maybe mean in my body of work.
Okay,
I don't know. It's so, yeah.
I'm like 90% sure they don't, and I don't know why I remember that.
I know, it's also like she's such a minor character. Yeah, all my Twilight fanfiction was about Leah Clearwater.
Like, in Twilight, Leah Clearwater is one of the more interesting characters, because her whole plot is that, like, she's in love with this guy, but then because of weird werewolf magic, he falls in love with somebody else, and she just has to deal with it, and she's part of his werewolf pack, which means that she can read his mind. Like, imagine that you're in love with somebody and they dump you for supernatural reasons, but then you have to hear all of their thoughts. Like, that fucking sucks. Justice for Leah Clearwater.
You know, okay, so this ties into
then
like
it kind of happens again.
Yeah, like this ties into a bigger point in Twilight. I feel like where every other character other than Bella would have been a more interesting point of view character.
Okay. Back to the source material. Leah's logic. She may never know if she loves him or not, so she might as well kiss him with 2 M's, since she's never gonna see him again. Edward's logic. Well, think. Everything he, quote, loves about Bella are things that make her human/different. Example, he can't read her mind, she's clumsy, blah blah blah. But when she's a vampire, to me, some of that love just sort of dies. Leah's different from anyone he ever met. Edward loves Leah. Leah doesn't love Edward because it's a Blackwater. Believe me when I say I didn't want this relationship to happen, but it just sort of did.
I love how, like, divorced from the canon this is. And also, like, you need to read, like, multiple other source texts to understand what's going on here.
Other highlights of this document include, you talk about how you've had one boyfriend and you've only been kissed once, and it was by your boyfriend's best friend, parentheses, that was an awkward day. You have, like, a lot of side rants about who you do or don't ship in Harry Potter. This is, you weren't writing Harry Potter fanfiction, but you do talk about, like, how all of the Slytherins in Harry Potter are related because they're all, like, from the same pure blood lineage, which makes things a little bit incest adjacent, which, I mean, honestly, these are some really great close readings for a 12-year-old. Like, it is true that, like, they're all, like, the Blacks and the Lestranges are, like, literally related.
But then I think later I say that a pairing that I support is Tonks Sirius, who aren't they actual cousins?
They are
like in real
actual
life?
Cousins, so that's a little bit, that's
so
a little
it's
rough.
actually kind of neutral on incest.
A net zero on incest from this profile.
But perhaps most sinfully, you ship Lily/Snape. It's canon.
I know!
I guess going back to, so you had a bunch of friends and artists perform this and put it on a Tumblr blog as, like, an art piece that you presumably did as part of your master's degree, which is hilarious.
Yeah, I think it's also like I don't know. There's been a lot of discourse, I think, around like, oh, like what is digital theater? And so for me, also kind of getting to like slap the label digital theater on this felt very like tongue in cheek, but also purposeful. Like I think there's this way that like digital theater sometimes feels like this slog of like, ugh, I have to go like watch a play on Zoom and it's horrible, but I have to do this to support, you know, my industry. So also making digital theater that felt kind of like fun and lively and just like cringy and embarrassing, as opposed to like self-serious of like we're acting in our apartments. I don't know.
This feels like every time I made extremely bad graphic design on purpose. Like that's the energy I'm getting from this. Also from like our horrible like word art logos that we use for everything.
But you do say that your hope is to, quote, build a, quote, digital altar to this lost archive, which I do think the concept of a digital altar is fundamentally different from Zoom theater, because Zoom theater is very much like you're either watching it like live or a recording, and it just feels really awkward in, oh my god, 2022, almost 2 years into the pandemic. And I do think that like on a macro level, what is cool about this is that this is a cool way of engaging in theater on the internet that doesn't feel like, why aren't we just in a theater? Like, this needs to be hosted on Tumblr. And on a micro level, LMAO WTF.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I got the phrase digital archive from a workshop I was doing this playwright Eric N. And I do think there's also something about how like Tumblr was really non-functional when I was trying to build this. And as I was trying to build this ugly site, like all the links that I was looking at for like how to build a sparkle cursor kept breaking down. And I do think that's something I think about a lot is, yeah, this is like a lost archive. Like all the links are broken, and like one day all the links to this site will also break down and the videos won't be supported effectively. And I don't know.
Isn't it like actually a real problem with like internet like archive stuff? The fact that like, yeah, shit on the internet like disappears so quickly. And unless you're like actively like archiving it, shit's just gone forever.
I know, I feel like we were always warned growing up, like, oh, the internet is forever. And it's just like, no, the internet is disintegrating every minute.
Something that we did talk about last episode with Molly White was how one of the bad things about a blockchain-based social media would be that the blockchain is literally built as like an uneditable, undeletable archive. And like, what happens if you dox somebody? Like, that doxing can't be deleted. I mean, I think there's something kind of beautiful about how this website one day just won't work. But even like, so there are some blogs that are still very much alive and kicking, like, very specific reference, but fuck yeah, random British indie bands. I found like all of my music taste was defined by the Tumblr blog Fuck Yeah, Random British Indie Bands in 2011. And that blog has since been deleted, but like, you can go back on the web archive and find like old mixtapes that they made and shit. And like, I don't know. I think like blockchain bros want to be like, yeah, but you need something that can't be deleted. But then it's like, okay, but like, honestly, like, the web archive exists. And that was my blockchain rant of episode 38 of Wow If True. Like, comment, subscribe.
My god, are you trying to make us a crypto podcast? Please, Amanda,
I don't know
we can't
how I
keep doing
managed
this.
to bring up crypto while talking about Twilight fanfiction, but, you know, okay, I feel like Alice would have invested in crypto.
Okay, wait. Yeah. Okay, which Twilight characters would be doing cryptocurrency?
Oh, Emmett. Emmett for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Emmett for sure would be like, yeah, guys, come on. Like, crypto. Come on, guys. No, it's the future.
You had that ready to go. You were like, yes, Emmett's...
But literally in Midnight Sun, like, the recently published Midnight Sun, Edward, from his point of view, literally does mention that the reason why the Cullens have so much money is that Alice uses her powers of seeing in the future to do insider trading.
Alice?
Yeah. No, I think Alice would do crypto, but Alice would not do NFTs. On the other hand, I think Rosalie would do, like,
Rosalie owns the one that Reese Witherspoon owns. The World of Women NFTs.
Yes, exactly.
Rosalie's in on that.
Yeah, Rosalie is girl bossing this. Yeah. Emmett bought a Bored Ape.
Yeah. And Edward is like, ugh, I don't relate to technology. I just listen to my records, and I drink my tea, and I brood.
I got a brood to Claire
Well, Alexa,
Deloon again.
as the foremost scholar on Leah Clearwater, what do you think her take on cryptocurrency would be?
That's a great question. I'm going to have to get back to you on that. I would say probably negative. I think she in general is a very bitter character. And I think when I was 12, I was also interested in posturing as, emo and bitter. And so I liked Leah because she was emo. And
what I think is funny, though, is that, Twilight is a very, 2009 emo girl relic, but there's really nothing emo about it other than the fact that vampires are in it.
No, but the vampires are key. That's all you need. What the hell are you talking about?
Emo. No, it's emo because it's also we can't be together, pain. Being together is pain. Sex is pain. When they have sex and he bruises her and she's like, no, bruise me more.
You're right.
So emo.
But also it's kind of Mormon. I feel like this wraps around it's a full circle, if that makes sense.
But also the music. The music was a bit.
The music was very emo. Yeah. I mean, she was also in My Chemical
honestly,
Romance,
I take that back. Twilight is emo.
That's...
Also, look at those book covers. Those are emo as fuck.
Yes. Those were so emo.
Oh my god.
Twilight was so much of its era. I feel like you could not publish Twilight now.
Oh no, I was just I know when I think about the type of YA that exists now and then what I was, consuming as a 12-year-old, it's just really, it's not like it's been that long, but it's so different. And it's just, I don't know. I'm sure the current YA will fuck up today's teens. And
I don't know. I do want to point to the book When We Were Magic by Sarah Gailey, in which the opening scene is at a prom after party. A teenage girl explodes a guy's dick off of his body and kills him, and the entire book is about her and her best friends trying to figure out how to hide his body and not get caught for his murder, and then it turns out that she was gay all along.
That tracks.
It's a great book.
Gailey. That is that 100% tracks for Sarah Gailey.
Damn,
so
I wish
cool.
that we had gay exploding penises in 2009, but we didn't.
And we found a pull quote.
We did find a pull quote. I win. Thank you, Allison.
Oh yeah, no, I was just thinking about this when Alexa was talking about digital theater and watching people on Zoom performing digital theater. And I guess I was just kind of thinking about... So I was thinking about this because I recently started watching bits of Critical Role live streams because I watched a cartoon, which was very bad, but also very good, in a similar way to how Twilight was very bad and good. That's a lie. It's different. But I was thinking about the fact that there's a lot of forms of digital media which you are watching some guy in real time basically perform for you, Twitch streamers or D&D live streamers and stuff like that. And it's interesting because I feel like that doesn't get considered quote unquote digital theater, but theater that just gets portrayed on Zoom or something like that. That's digital theater.jpg.
I mean, even podcasting is digital theater. It's just digital theater that we edit after the fact so that you don't know how many times we say and how many times we awkwardly pause. Back to the days before Twitch streaming and Zoom theater, 2009.
Sorry, to pause.
Wait.
Which Twilight characters are Twitch streamers?
Okay, definitely Alice.
I was gonna say
maybe
Alice.
Angela.
I
I feel like Angela's very quiet, in the actual series, but she streams some Animal Crossing shit.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Angela's the best character in Twilight. I feel like Leah Clearwater would be a streamer.
That's a bold statement.
I don't think Leah Clearwater understands video games.
I want Renesmee to be a streamer.
Yes! That's my Twilight fanfic, the one where Renesmee grows up and becomes a Twitch streamer and is and then you can see her horrible weird family walking in the background, and it's just and Twitch chat goes fucking apeshit whenever I don't know, fucking Emmett is behind there.
Right. And then you're on Twitter and you're why are her parents about her age? Her parents seem like they're the same age as her. What's going on? What's this mission? That's digital immersive theater.
Yeah, that's the next book in the Twilight series, because there is that whole scene, especially in the movies, where Bella is Googling the Quileute tribe and stuff, trying to figure out the mythology of the vampires and the werewolves. And this happens where some of Renesmee's Twitch followers are why is she in this beautiful house? Her parents look the same age as her. Like, what are her parents' jobs? What do they do for money? And then they Google her, and then they just find some weird shit, and they're like, say it out loud. And then she's like, vampire baby with a bad name.
Okay, like, I think her whole bit on Twitch is that she says bluntly that, oh yeah, I'm a vampire, and everyone thinks it's a bit, and it's not a bit. She's being totally honest there.
And I feel like aesthetically she'd be very, like, normcore. She's just out here wearing those, like, tie front white t-shirts and, like, khaki kind of, like, jogger pants that are, like, sweatpants but a bit more stylish. Like, she's very normcore, and she's just like, yeah, I'm a vampire. And that's the giveaway, is that she's not out here with, like, red lipstick and blood and shit.
Can you imagine, like, if more media love triangles, like, resolved themselves the way the Twilight love triangle resolved itself? Like, I just think that's so fucking crazy.
We don't talk enough about how the Twilight love triangle resolved itself.
I just think that's wild. And then I feel like the implication is also, like, oh, Jacob was in love with Bella because he was actually in love with her eggs, which also means that maybe he was kind of a little in love with Edward. I just think there's a lot happening
Jacob
there.
probably was
a
little bit
underexplored.
Oh man, Jacob was in love with, like, Edward's sperm. Which,
that one
again,
sperm
I mean,
Edward.
I've been asking this since, like, 2009, but I'm sorry, like, if your body is undead, how are you producing semen? I don't know.
No, she specifically, on the Stephanie Meyer website, FAQ, she specifically includes a section on how, if I remember correctly, how vampires can get erections even though they don't have blood. I remember this.
How do they do that?
It's the venom pumps through their body.
Poison dick, let's go.
I can't believe I said Twilight wasn't emo when they have, like, a poison dick. But
it's literally like, you have to die for sex.
Yeah, because sex is a sin.
Sorry, that's very emo.
That's
this
she's
does
Mormon.
bring us to an important point, though, of how, at least in the US, public school sex education is very bad. And that's why, raise your hand if you got sex education from fanfiction.net. All of us are raising our hand.
Yeah!
Oh, wow.
That's rough. That's rough for all of us.
And I also like how, speaking of fanfic sex, which I didn't know this until, like, last year, but apparently it is referred to in the vernacular as, quote, lemons.
Wait, did you not know about lemons?
I don't think they call it that anymore.
They've been called, okay, lemons is like an archaic term, but I feel like it's passed down to the lore.
Maybe
They
that's
don't say
because I
lemons
was
anymore.
just reading
Like,
very
people don't talk
mature
about citrus.
fanfiction like Harry Potter and the Methods of Rationality, which we will mention later, don't worry. But
you know, I love that this episode is just like the greatest hits of 2009, and like anyone who's like 16 who's listening to this is gonna be like, what the hell are you talking about?
I don't know
you guys
if any
are
of
so
our listeners
fucking
are
old.
16. Honestly, I do want to know. Tell us. And I'm sorry for talking about poison dick on this podcast if you're 16. But also, you've probably read a bunch of bad fanfics, so you know.
Can I tell a really vivid, kind of uncomfortable fanfiction porn two paired stories really quick?
Yes, but the 16-year-olds need to leave.
Great. Okay, one, I remember I had a really old, like the old kind of Kindle, like the very first kind of Kindle, and I figured out how to use it to access the internet, which it wasn't really supposed to be able to do, and I would read dirty fan fiction at family events, but everyone would think that I was reading on my Kindle, and they were like, oh my god, she's such a reader. Wow, that's amazing. And I was reading fan fiction porn. And I also remember reading dirty Twilight fan fiction, thinking that I got my first period, and it was actually, you know, experiencing getting wet for the first time. It was actually my experience.
We're really earning our E for explicit rating, as they say in podcastings.
I'm so sorry.
I mean, as long as there's no 16-year-olds.
I mean, we told them to leave. It's fine.
But there is a part where you're like, I don't write lemons. Which, I mean, maybe the reason is because you were, like, 13.
Yeah, it's probably a good thing you weren't writing lemons.
If I had, they would have been very, like, at that age, I was very confused about the mechanics of sex, especially penis and vagina sex. So it would have been just, yeah.
You know what's actually so interesting about fanfic is, like, the way that you can kind of pinpoint the writer's age from what they're writing. No, because, like, okay, like, there's, like, a really specific sort of, like, porn scene that gets written by, like, 17-year-olds who don't know what sex is like. And there's also, like, you can tell that people are younger because they write college fics that are completely inaccurate to what college is like. But on the other hand, you can tell when someone is, like, 35 years old when they describe the kitchen.
Oh man, that would be me if I wrote fanfic now. I would be like, Leah Clearwater took out her KitchenAid mixer and she weighed the flour on her kitchen scale to make sure that the ratio was exactly right as she baked bread for Edward, her beloved. Too bad Edward couldn't eat the bread because he's a fucking vampire.
She's not even Italian. Her name is Bella. Sorry.
So we're talking about like vintage teen culture. What's fucking up the kids now?
I think now what's fucking up the teens is that you go on Instagram and you search for like vegetarian recipes and then your recommendations are all like thinspo. And I mean, this is the hill that I'll die on, is that there's a lot of discourse in the government right now, especially on the Senate committee that deals with social media, which I watch all their hearings. I'm a fangirl. No, just kidding. That's just part of my job. But the US government right now is very concerned with how the internet is leading to eating disorders in teenagers. And I don't think that it's necessarily like pro-anorexia content that was like on Tumblr back in the day. I think it's just the fact that like I cannot go on TikTok and look for vegetarian recipes without getting weight loss recipes.
Here's my hot take. I think the problem of the internet with regards to teenagers 10 years ago was the fact that you could befriend people who would lead you into like weird subcultures. If that makes sense. And by weird, I'm not talking like supernatural. No, that's also a problem. Like, that'll strangle your brain forever. Homestuck. That's what I'm talking about. No, I'm talking about people who have like pro-ana blogs and people who have like pro-suicide blogs. And also the fact that people would just post like jump scares and shit like that. Like, there was some really dark shit you could find, but it was all shit that somebody had put there for you to fall into, like a little pit trap. But the problem today is that the algorithm has made these pit traps for you, and it's not like a human being that's like leading you there, if that makes sense, like deliberately. It's like, yeah, I'm looking for vegetarian recipes, and now I'm on all these pro-ana like weight loss TikTokers.
I think that you guys are right on though. Like, I feel like when people talk about the internet and teens now, it's all about social media. And like my experience of like quote unquote like growing up on the internet was social media was like not even a part of it in my, like I didn't have an Instagram until I was in college. Like it was about who I was on the internet. And to be fair, like in some freaky, not great situations, but like in fandom spaces and like other kind of weird, tiny subculture, anonymous, talking to people, acting like I wasn't 12, as opposed to also performing a personal brand different.
No, yeah. I think you're I think you're completely accurate about that, because it's the switch between like internet that runs on like pseudonyms and people creating like a space where basically you have like an online handle and you can probably change it between sites and you don't need to verify anything. And like that has its own dangers, but also that's a completely different environment than like what we're in right now, where it's like, okay, you need to verify everything with your Facebook. You're putting your human face on everything. You're making videos, you're posting photos, and it's very much like an extension of the real world, or like a mirror of the real world, or like idealized in some way, rather than I'm gonna go log into the dark web.
I do remember, I might have told this story on the podcast before, but I was playing this like online Pictionary game, and I went into a room expecting to play Pictionary, and there are these two people in there being like, get out, we're cybering. And I was like, what does that mean? And they were like, we won't tell you. And I was like, what does it mean? And then I kept asking people what cybering means when I was trying to play Pictionary.
That's, oh no.
I mean, we've definitely talked about this on the podcast before, but I do know you, Alexa, through the weird teen writing internet circles, and I'm honestly kind of amazed at how quickly this happened, where you're 12 and you're writing Healing Leah, a prolific fanfic.net like archive that was listed on a worst fanfics blog, and then by like 3 years later, you're like winning national awards for your fiction. How does that happen?
Well, I just always knew I was destined for greatness. No, I do think though, like, okay, so two things. I think that the thing that people say, which is annoying, but that fan fiction like is good training wheels for being a writer. I think that that's true. Like, I think that like I really like I learned how to writing Twilight fan fiction. But I also think what I learned how to do writing Twilight fanfiction was exploit imagery of suffering for clout. Like, I think that the first thing that I was, like, winning stuff in the teen writer world, the first fiction story I wrote was, like, they're lesbians and one of them is dying from breast cancer. And, like, I think the pipeline from, you know, like, they're lesbians and one of them is dying from breast cancer, and then, like, oh, like, Leah tried to commit suicide 3 times in my fan fiction is actually, like, pretty clear. Like, I feel like I learned that, like, rewards-based system for, like, making, like, tear emotion machines or, like, heartstring machine. And I think that you and I have talked a lot about how the teen writing community, like, perpetuates and coagulates around, like, certain types of writing. And I think for fiction, a lot of that type of writing was, like, tragic. And that was, like, an organic outgrowth of, like, writing hurt comfort. It is.
Well, I mean, you also did write about Ophelia.
Yeah. That was also a kind of fan fiction. 100% was, like, that piece.
Yeah. And now you've come full circle again, making art about Leah Clearwater by making your friends make art about Leah Clearwater.
It's art about Leah Clearwater at this point.
Yeah. Well, it's all happening.
I think that's super interesting, though, because, like, I was, like, a lurker in fandom until I was, like, 18, 19 before I started posting fic, and then I got, like, very big very quickly in some very niche places. And then, like, immediately after that, I started, like, trying to get my science fiction published, and then that happened. But, like, it was very weird realizing going into fandom that a lot of the people in fandom were the exact same people doing, like, professional writing stuff, because I had not expected that to be true. But, like, about 50% of, like, the quote-unquote good fic in a fandom is usually written by someone who has, like, a professional writing day job, or, like, not a day job, or, like, they do, like, original stuff, and fanfic is their way of dicking around, which is, like, really surprising to me. That's interesting.
Like, as someone who's trying to write for TV, like, one of my career goals right now is to do professional fan fiction, and that I would love to write for, like, a Star Wars TV show. You know what I mean?
What is a spec script if not just a fanfic? Like, let's be real.
Persevering.
Yeah.
Well, no, but I mean, literally, like, when you're trying to get a script writing job in Hollywood, it's like, let's say that you want to be a writer on Riverdale. That would be such a fun job. I want to be a writer on Riverdale. So you write a spec script, which is essentially you submit to, like, the writers on Riverdale, here is my idea for a Riverdale episode. So you are writing fanfic, but Riverdale is fanfic of the Archie comics, so you are writing fanfic of fanfic for your job.
I wish that was my job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fan fiction feels so, like, I think in the best version of itself, like, it has this allure of being, like, non-corporate, but it is kind of, like, the way that it overlaps with the kind of, like, IP grab of trying to churn out as much, like, related or in-universe or, like, multiverse kind of content. I don't know, it's kind of bleak. I've been thinking about the Star Wars Hotel a lot, and, like, the way that it's trying to, like, make, like, a corporate LARP. When LARPing is, like, this expression of, like, fanish joy, and then to kind of corporatize it, it's so bleak.
Damn. I didn't know there was a Star Wars Hotel. Is that just what it sounds like?
You don't know about... You have to do a whole episode about the Star Wars Hotel. It's like a Star Wars Hotel, but it's like a 2 days, like, it's like in character, like, you LARP Star Wars, but it's like $5,000 for 2 nights.
Damn.
Oh my god.
It's almost like these people just weren't unpopular in high school. Like, you can do that for free when you're unpopular in high school.
I had a Tumblr post go viral recently, and by viral I mean I had a Tumblr post get to 20,000 notes in the last 48 hours.
What the heck?
Yeah, this happens to me every once in a while. It's never the post I expect, and it's 2022 and I'm still on Tumblr, and I fully expect to see this reposted on Reddit in a couple of days.
No one who reblogs your posts, none of those 20,000 people look at your blog and see that you have a podcast called Wow If True and think maybe I'll listen to it.
Right? It's completely
It's
useless for getting
up.
people to listen to the podcast. But, like, okay, I was talking about D&D media, so I'll just quote the post to you, which is, like, I guess this is its own form of performance, where I write a post and then I perform the post.
That's
anyway.
great.
I genuinely think that D&D media scratches an itch in a person for a slightly shitty kind of story. I think D&D media is shitty in a way that is deeply compelling. Like, I think the problem with a lot of modern media is that it is technically very good, but it has no heart. D&D media is all heart and makes no fucking sense. But it's closer to sitting around a campfire and making some shit up, which I think is the primal state of making up a story. Which is like me just talking about how, like, the pacing of any D&D adaptation makes no fucking sense. And then a lot of people apparently resonated with this, but then it escaped into the Minecraft YouTube fandom, and now they're posting that into tags. So I guess what I'm saying is that media is bad and none of us should consume it.
are the Minecraft YouTubers Blorbo from their shows?
I don't want to know.
I also will add that Tumblr did release a ad-free $5 a month option today, and in their announcement post, they did say, now back to our Blorbos.
That's kind of good. I hate it when they're, like, literate.
Yeah, I feel like it's really cringe when Tumblr itself engages with Tumblr culture, but it's almost, like, worse if they don't.
Yeah.
They're kind of in a damned if they do, damned if they don't space, where it's like, they shouldn't do it, but it's nice to see that they can. I don't know how to describe that.
Yeah, they do know Blorbo from their shows. So, speaking of Blorbo from my shows, you know who's Blorbo from a very specific subset of the internet? A man named Eliezer Shlomo Yudkowsky. Which, as a Jewish person, I can say, what a name, what a name. So, while we're talking about 2009 fanfics, what if we talk about some of the most influential fanfics personally in our lives? And Alexa, you are a huge Harry Potter and the Methods of Rationality fan, which is an absolutely mammothly long Harry Potter fanfic that is known as one of the most popular and most controversial works in the fandom, which is basically using the school of thought of rationality, which is basically just trying to, like, science and reasoning your way out of anything. And basically, it's like, what if Harry Potter went to Hogwarts, but he was like, okay, what the fuck, how does magic work? And also, he is the literal most annoying narrator that has ever existed ever.
Oh, man.
He kind of is.
I love him. I like him more than actual Harry, for sure.
Well, that's because he has a personality, and Harry and Harry Potter, like, sometimes does not have a personality.
I will say, in our show notes, which you can get if you subscribe to us on Patreon, I wrote, Isabel went on a date with a rationalist. Alexa thinks HPMOR is a work of art. Amanda binge-listened to all of HPMOR while suffering from food poisoning in Laos.
So really, we've all been hurt by rationalists in this podcast.
But it is just really fascinating also, because when I was doing a quick bit of research about Harry Potter and the Methods of Rationality, I went on Eliezer Yudkowsky's Wikipedia page, and apparently he's friends with Peter Thiel, who is one of the founders of PayPal, who is now known for just being, like, a big Republican curmudgeon who funds, like, every bad politician.
It's weird because he's also gay.
I mean, so is a journalist whose first and last name both begin with G, who I will not invoke in this podcast. You can be gay and still be a bad person.
I just think it's funny that he's a Republican, because it's like,
gay Republican.
Okay, I guess. Like, I see the finance won out over the social, like, rights. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like, you know, like, who cares if you have basic human rights if you have billions of dollars? Am I right, ladies?
That's actually pretty fair, though. But yeah. Here's my question for you. This is a genuine question about Eliezer Yudkowsky. Because thinking about reading Harry Potter Methods of Rationality as, like, a fan work feels very strange to me, even though it's obviously, like, it is fan fiction, because I'm like, do you think that he is a fan of Harry Potter? Like, do you think that piece, book, fan fiction is an expression of, like, fanishness? Because it doesn't feel like his relationship to Harry Potter is the same as my relationship to Twilight when I was 12, which was like, I loved, like, I don't, do you think that he's like a Harry Potter fan?
You know, I think he's a fan in the way that people are fans in, like, a curative sense rather than, like a curatorial sense rather than in the sense of a I want to play in this space, where he wants to catalog everything that's wrong with Harry Potter and expand on that. And I think that's its own way of being a fan. A really weird one.
It's a very Mike Schubert vibe, if you will. Yeah, literally, this New Yorker article is like, Peter Thiel became the largest contributor to the Singularity Institute, a think tank co-founded in 2000 by his friend Eliezer Yudkowsky. And then later on it's like, by the way, Eliezer Yudkowsky is fanfic famous. That's not a direct quote. But Alexa, so you also, in your undergraduate studies at Yale University, you did do a lot of scholarship about fanfiction, and that included Harry Potter and the Methods of Rationality, and I just want to know more about that.
Sure. I think with HPMOR, like, I think some of the things that are interesting to me is I'm also, in my mind, I'm like, it's so different from other fan texts. And then I'm like, also, is there like a gendered aspect here where like most prominent fan, like big name fan authors are all women? And I feel like there is this element of like Eliezer, I don't know. I feel like there is something about HPMOR that feels different from other fan works, that feels like it is not about an expression of, you know, like joy at Harry Potter. Not that all fan works feel that way, but I also feel like I'm like, oh, do I just feel like it's different because, you know, it has these kind of trappings, like rationality, you could say, exists in opposition to like fanish obsession. Does that kind of make sense? Like, I feel like I'm like, oh, is it that different, or do I just think that it's different because it's by a dude and, you know, it doesn't feel like gushy with affection?
I don't know. But I do remember you telling me when I was reading Harry Potter and the Methods of Rationality, you were like, I've never cried the way I did when, spoiler alert, Hermione dies.
Yeah.
I was going to say that I don't think it's a gender thing, because one of the other big Harry Potter big name fans, like Copperbatch, like his work, like Stealing Harry and all that. I love that I'm talking about this as if it's like a thing everybody's going to know. Nobody's going to fucking know this. It's like random Harry Potter fanfic. Oh yeah,
I read Stealing Harry.
Yeah, because Stealing Harry is good, but like stuff like that feels more in line with like the traditional arc of Harry Potter fan fiction, if you will, than Harry Potter and the Methods of Rationality does. And I think the reason that Harry Potter and the Methods of Rationality got so popular, for like one reason, was that it felt like so different than everything else, and the guy just aggressively committed to his bit.
Yeah.
And it was just long as shit.
Yeah. And speaking of like work that literally you engage in the audience, like Alexa's big fanfic piece, where anyone, including you, Craig, can submit a video doing a dramatic reading of a section of the 7-page document. There was a big thing where, like, in the final battle with Voldemort, it was like a puzzle for the reader where Eliezer was like, you have to come up with a way that Harry can get himself out of this puzzle within the next, like, day, or else he's just gonna die and that's the end of the story. Like, this is your test for what I've taught you about rationality. And it is very, like, proselytizing in a way. Like, it is... I mean, what's also interesting is that he is a, quote, autodidact, which means that he did not go to traditional school. And I guess he just learned a lot about rationality and also read Harry Potter and had a lot of time to write this, like, God, I need to look up how long is the Harry Potter of Methods of Rationality.
I don't know. I think the other thing I like about it is because I find myself really drawn to works that are interpretive or transformative in some way, because I think that makes them really rich. Like, because there's the text and then there's the text that it's relating to. Like, for some, this is such a bizarre comparison. HPMOR weirdly evokes the same feeling in me that the Watchmen TV show evokes in me, which is like, it's a new thing that I actually like more than the original thing. But not only do I like it more than the original thing, it actually makes me like the original thing in a different way. Like, it changes my relationship to the original thing in retrospect. And so the pleasure is not just like, oh, this thing is great, but it's like the volleying and comparison and bouncing between the two things that like makes it feel so good.
Okay, I did find out that Harry Potter and the Methods of Rationality is 660,000 words long.
That's double the length of my fanfic.
Damn. Yeah, and then also, Alexa, just like, why do you like it?
Why do I like it? I think it's that quality of volleying. Like, I just think that, like, I like how every moment is, like, also refracts me back to reconsider in a new way something in the original. Like, look, like, I'm not like a big Potterhead in general, but I like when Harry is like, wait, how does this make sense from like a timeline perspective, that like volleys and has me reconsider something in the old thing. And I also think this is kind of dumb, but like, I was like a little brat kid who was like brain, you know, like I was much more like, I like the Baudelaire orphans, and I didn't like Jock Harry. And so I feel like having a protagonist who's like, my power is to think things through, like that was more the type of story that I was always attracted to. And I think a problem that I always had with Harry Potter was like, it's just this like jock dude who has friends and is popular. And I like little shit Harry.
But so did you read this as a kid?
This fanfic or Harry Potter?
HPMOR.
HPMOR, no, Amanda, I listened to it It's so funny that you said that you listened to it puking, because I listened to it like when I was very, very sick. I was in my last semester of college, and I was really, really ill with undiagnosed Lyme disease, and all I did was lie in my bed in my dorm and listen to the really bad podcast version of Harry Potter's and Methods of Rationality. That's all I did.
Hey, is that the secret to consuming this media? Is you listen to it as a podcast when you're sick?
Hey, I think they did a very good job with that podcast. Like, they had actors and everything, and a lot of the actors had no idea what they were doing.
Amanda, there's one of
You're not selling this.
One of the random people who reads like a random bit part is now one of the people on like This American Life. Like it's like a really famous. She's the one who did, I think, also like Nice White Parents, maybe, or I don't know. She did some like big podcast.
Oh man,
and she's like a bit part
amazing.
in HPMOR. Yeah,
I feel like we've talked about HP too much in this podcast for 2022.
I know,
when
it's
HP
also like
is
Harry Potter's
rightfully canceled.
Is shit.
But I feel like you can't talk about, like, 2009 internet fandom without, like, I mean, even in Alexa's author bio for her Twilight fanfiction, she spends, like, at least 1 page of the 7-page document talking about, like, who she does and doesn't ship in Harry Potter, as though that is relevant to her Twilight fanfiction.
I mean, it clearly is. Okay, because I feel like Harry Potter and, like, Twilight were, like, the two big fandoms, I feel like, in like our middle school years that like over time just completely crumbled, if that makes sense. I would also put like Naruto on here, but that was really only true if you're a weeb, but also like most people in fandom were weebs. Naruto is also not that great.
It is interesting because I think something that's different is that like Harry Potter has had, I mean, thank God it's finally crumbling, but like I feel like Harry Potter has kind of had a stranglehold on culture for a while, whereas I do feel like, at least for me, Twilight was a here today, gone tomorrow. Like it was so big and then it was just like gone.
There's also something shameful about Twilight in that I feel like with Harry Potter, it was this like phenomenon where it was like you read it with your parents, but like Twilight was like, I'm not like other girls, but I do like Twilight.
Harry Potter should have been more shameful.
Yeah. Now it is.
You have to publicly apologize for liking Harry Potter, I think, in 2022. But like but I think in 2022 you can say that you like Twilight and people will be like, it was of the time, or maybe that's just who I hang out with. I feel like in the long run though, here's my argument. Like I think it's like a Beatles and Rolling Stone thing where Harry Potter had like a huge impact but did not actually affect the way that books around it were written. Whereas, like, Twilight, after Twilight came out, like, my god, the years of vampire YA novels, so many of them. And that really, I think, shaped the course of YA and where we find it today in a way that Harry Potter did not shape, like, children's literature, because Harry Potter was objectively not, like, really that revolutionary.
Do you think also, like, the current moment of, like, hyper-realistic, kind of gritty, real issues, YA is, like, a reaction to the teen paranormal romance phenomenon?
I think that completely tracks to me.
Because I do remember after Twilight got big, going into Barnes & Noble, and there was a section that was literally teen paranormal romance. It was just Twilight knockoffs. Like, girl in love with sea monster, girl in love with... Yeah. You know, Mothman, like, girl, like...
Yeah, I feel like the Tumblr gays will fucking eat up Girl in Love with Mothman. Like, right now, like, in the year of our Lord 2022.
Do you think fanfiction is different now? Like, one thing that a fandom that I'm a part of likes to do recently has been, like, go back to find old archives of, like, fandom materials from the 80s and talk about how, like, the tropes are different and the way that people write, like, things and dynamics that have changed since then. And so I guess my question is, like, do you guys think that fan fiction, especially like when we were, you know, in middle school, there wasn't AO3. Like, do you think that fan fiction is different now in some way than it was when we were 12?
So many thoughts about this. I have so many thoughts.
Go.
Okay, so I think it is very different than what was being done like 10 years ago. First of all, I think it's a lot more professional in general. And it's more accepted in society in a way that it was, like, extremely shameful in, like, 2009. Although I might just be saying that because I was 12 then, and everything I did was just intensely shameful because I was 12. But there's, like, a couple of really big differences. Like, first of all, you don't see there's a couple of styles of fic that you never see anymore. Like, do you guys remember ever seeing like fic where it was like, congrats on your purchase of your new blank, and it would be like the character name, and then it would give you an instruction manual for like having that character in your home. This was really big in anime fandom.
What?
I've not seen it in the past 5 years. Yeah. I will find some vintage versions of this and send it to you,
A
because
big
this is like
one
a real
I just
thing.
was like, what if all the characters had aim?
That was, yeah. Oh man. And then all of their screen names were like Vampire Lover 69. But no, I feel like 69 wasn't really in the cultural zeitgeist in 2009.
So chatfics still exists, but there's less of them. But the big difference is that there's no more gender bends, because now people think they're problematic. There's so much ABO. So much
know.
ABO.
We've already
Yeah.
talked about ABO on the podcast.
I'm not going to go into here, but that's the biggest difference, is that the amount of ABO now versus the amount of ABO then is,
Yeah.
there was no ABO then. It is all ABO now.
Oh no, I was gonna say, like, something that we did talk about off mic was how I feel like something, like, my favorite trope in fanfic is just, like, this happens directly after the source text ends, and it's just people being like, damn, some shit went down, and now I gotta grapple with it. And I feel like, is there something comforting about, like, do we turn to fanfic because we just want to be, like, gently rocked to bed, knowing, like, yes, after the War of Hogwarts, people were very sad, but then they moved on. But they never forgot. God bless.
I mean, that's like the herd comfort impulse, right?
Yeah.
Like, you want Blorbo from your shows to go through it, but after a Blorbo from your shows goes through it, you want Blorbo from your shows to get like a little kiss.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just want Blorbo from my shows to be okay.
I do read fanfiction pretty exclusively in my bed, like lying in bed.
Like, on your phone.
Yeah, on my phone.
Like,
Yeah.
I do not read fanfic on my laptop.
No,
I download
never.
the EPUB from AO3 on my phone and import it into iBooks.
Download the
You
EPUB?
download the EPUB?
What's wrong with you?
Yeah, I put it on iBooks on my phone.
That's so wild.
That's so deranged.
Wait, I have one more question for Isabel about the state of
Yes.
fanfiction. Do you think that 12-year-olds are still writing fanfiction?
Yeah.
Feel
No,
like
they are.
They are?
I think they are, but it's harder to see if you're an adult.
Is it on Wattpad?
But so I think the thing about where 12-year-olds are writing fic is actually tied to a larger question of like where fandom is in 2022. Because I think fandom has been starting to scatter for the last like 3-4 years, because it migrated, a lot of it migrated from Tumblr, but there wasn't like a good place for it to go, right? Like, people went to Twitter, but Twitter is actually really bad for fandom. And there's a lot of stuff happening in like really random little Discord servers, but you need to find the Discord servers to get into them. So it's almost like there's a decentralization happening in fandom.
Oh, like Bitcoin.
So I think... Shut the fuck up.
But that's so funny, because in my mind, I'm like, oh my god, when I was 12, we didn't have AO3. Like, AO3 is so, but, huh.
Also, like, I think the fandoms that 12-year-olds are writing for are not the fandoms that we're looking at.
Right.
What do you think they are?
I mean, oh, no, people are writing Minecraft YouTube fanfic and K-pop fanfic, and they're writing, like, Boku no Hero Academia fanfic.
Wow.
You guys are, like, looking at me, like, very stunned, and I'm like, yeah, this is what the kids are into.
That's so interesting. Because I remember in Twilight, there were adults. Like, it was not just a 12-year-olds. Like, it was... Because with 50 Shades and all of that.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, okay, there are adults in all of these fandoms, but I'm not in those fandoms, so I can't really say.
Oh, I'm a member of those fandoms. I write fanfic about Minecraft. I don't even know what Minecraft YouTube is.
I would have just accepted that. I'd be like, you know what? Yeah, not the weirdest thing someone's done. It's fine. I write about D&D characters. I can't say shit.
You do. You write fanfic about a randomly generated outcome.
Yeah, and I love that for me. No, okay, here's my pitch for D&D fanfic and why it's good. Why D&D fandom is actually really good for fanfic. Because a lot of fanfic, I think, like HPMOR, is about, like, finding the cracks in the story and writing within those cracks. And also D&D And so D&D being completely randomly generated in a lot of places leads to a lot of like situations that you need to justify, and also a lot of places that the players are going to gloss over because they don't want to roleplay it. And those lead to some very interesting places to do fandom stuff in.
Damn. Well,
I've got justifications.
Well, with that mic drop, Alexa, where can people find you on the internet, or do you not want to be found?
Did we come to any conclusions in this episode? I feel like we usually come to some sort of conclusion, but I think this was just like...
The conclusion is that 12-year-olds are into My Hero Academia, and that, we all learned about sex on fanfiction.net, and the Florida public education system should be shamed.
I'd like to imagine that somebody 10 years from now is going to find this podcast episode and decide to recreate it.
Yeah. I love that. As a performance piece.
Well, also, I mean, I think what's really funny about the professionalization of fanfic is that I didn't write fanfic as a 13-year-old because I was so concerned about getting a book deal when I was 13. And I was like, well, I mean, I can't sell my derivative works. I mean, it's not like I'm gonna... So instead, I just wrote, like, werewolf fiction that was a very clear knockoff of the Twilight werewolves. Anyway, Alexa, where can we find you?
I'm so desperate to be found every minute of every day. Yeah, you can check out Big Fanfic Piece at bigfanficpiece.tumblr.com. Sign the guest book, share a video, and you can find me on my website, alexaderman.com, if you are interested in plays. I also made a video game. Isabel did the art. You know, fun stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, there's like lizard people.
Mm-hmm.
I love how that's the only pitch for it, but that's the important
part.
Yeah.
I mean... That's the pitch.
If you like this episode, tell a friend. Word of mouth is how we grow. Thank you to all of our Patreon patrons, and shout out specifically to Zoe, Bray, Andre, Thea, Brand, and Gabriel. If you want your name in the above or in our Twitter header, slide right into our Patreon at patreon.com/wowiftrue. Shout out to Allison Mills, beloved audio editor, and a graphic designer and Canva warlock, Eric Silver, who made our logo, and Sam Rizer, who made our podcast music. You can find us on Twitter as @WowIfTruePod and Instagram and Facebook as @WowIfTrue. And if you've had your 15 seconds of fame, if you like Twilight and want to defend it to us, if you have thoughts on which characters and fictional properties would be selling Bitcoin and or buying Bitcoin and or, you know, have a Bored Ape, slide into our Twitter DMs and tell us about it. Until next time, let's get weird on the internet.
Sorry, I think the highlight of this episode is that Emmett would own a Bored Ape. Keep that in, Allison. I stand by it.